Digital 410 proudly presents the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast with your hosts Don Abernathy, Jeff Copsetta, and Henry Sledge.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast, your favorite World War II based podcast, and we are back live, as we are every Monday, and I want to welcome each and every one of you back. Joining us from Texas is our friend, good guy, Jeff Copsetta, and of course, Henry Sledge. Jeff, Henry, how y'all doing tonight?
Really good.
Yeah, hanging out with you guys every week.
Every week.
Better than that.
Yes, sir.
Every week. Oh boy, it's been a busy week. My brother's coming in town. He's actually drove from Vegas. He arrived sometime tonight. I got the roofing company coming out finally. It's been since last September. I'm finally getting the roof replaced after a hurricane. I'm picking up a lot of background noise, so I got distracted, and I'm getting new internet. So if you guys are tuning in and there's issue with the audio, it's because the fine people at Comcast throttle my bandwidth because I use too much of it. And so we're moving over to fiber optic tomorrow. So I got a busy day coming. Hopefully next Monday, if there's any sound issues tonight, that'll all be resolved. But enough of my complaining. Jeff, what's going on in your side of the world?
Well, man, I don't really have anything to complain about. Just going and blowing, doing what we do here, and look forward to talking about it and hanging out with you guys tonight. And been hearing back from a lot of our listeners, which is really cool, really encouraging. Got some great messages over this past week. So, yeah, got some cool stuff to talk about.
Oh, there I am. Fantastic. I actually muted this to turn up the volume on YouTube to make sure the audio is coming through. So that's been checked in real time. Henry, what's going on in your side of the world, fella?
I'm doing good. It's just a pleasure to watch you keep the plate spinning with all your producer stuff, man. It's so cool to see it. I don't see how you do it.
It's something. It's all I can say. It's something.
What are you drinking right now? I gotta ask. I've been meaning to ask.
You can take the boy out
of the mason jar.
You can take the boy out of the trailer, but you can't take the trailer out of the boy. I'm drinking wine out of a mason jar.
I like it. What kind of wine is it?
True. I keep saying true crimes. Real crimes. I don't know. It's one you get at the grocery store for like $10. It has the mugshots from like the 1930s and 1914.
Nice.
Yeah, true.
I like it.
And
true crimes, I think.
Yeah, true crimes.
It's called true crimes. Yeah.
And if you get the app on your cell phone and you shine it at the bottle, the mugshot actually animates and starts giving the story of the person who got arrested. It's a whole thing, but I never did the app. But it's $10. It's good, and it fits in a mason jar. So
there you go.
Oh, I guess anything fits in a mason jar if you try hard enough. That's a lesson for the kids. So you posted some. Were they updated? Did you post more photos from the event you talked about last week, or did you have another event that just rolled through, Jeff? I think I saw a couple more photos coming up.
I probably posted some stuff from leftover, maybe from the air show. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, and your son, I saw, posted some stuff of him and his airborne stuff on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
Was that from the same event?
That's a different event. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Unfortunately, I could not be there this time, but Logan got to go in my place, which is really cool. Him and his best friend reenactor buddy from high school here. So yeah,
is that the one that got to ride the plane in his German uniform and slide around with the hobtail boots on?
Yep. Yeah. One of the last group of riders to ride in Texas Raiders. Yeah. It's a back-to-back from Bluebonnet Air Show. The following week is always an event around here called Magi, and a lot of our listeners from Texas will know that. Magi is a really cool museum. It stands for Museum of the American GI, and it's on private land. This guy, I have no idea how many acres he's got, but he just built this huge metal building. And he's got a really great little PX in there. Always has some great souvenirs and books and things to buy. He's got a really cool. And I don't know if it was a temporary display or not, but last time I was there, he had dog tags hanging that represented every guy that was KIA in Vietnam. I mean, what a 58,000 some odd sets of dog tags. It's a really, really powerful exhibit. And then you kind of go out to the rest of this huge, almost like a hangar, really, or like a barn dominium type building. And just half tracks and Shermans and M5 Stewarts, and he's got a running French Renault tank from World War One. He's got an AH-1 Cobra hanging from the rafters. Like,
basically, he would have what we
stuff.
would have if money was no object.
Right, right. And, you know, it's one thing to just have really nice looking vehicles curated in a building, but once a year, this event here, this past weekend, he rolls up the doors and everything drives out. And so you get all these vendors, and it's right there near College Station. So if anybody knows, you know, Texas A&M, it's that area there. So the A&M Corps cadets come out. They'll set up paintball ranges for kids. There's all kinds of vendors with things to buy, uniforms, equipment, etc. You know, the things that you would see at a Living History event. And then later in the day, they do a huge battle. And it's really cool because they kind of do a parade of vehicles first, and the guy that owns the place, he'll narrate it. He's got a little microphone. Everybody can sit in bleachers or hop up on the hood of your Jeep or whatever. And but they kind of give you a little background of each vehicle as they drive by, right? The half tracks, the Stewarts, the Shermans, the M10s, the M18s, you know, and then the German vehicles. There'll be Schwimmwagens out there and German half tracks and things like that. And then they kind of get set up and they kind of set the stage for what you're about to see. And then it's just 150 dudes with way too many blanks and too much fun just going at it. And, you know, they've kind of set, you know, it's coordinated, of course. So there's little set vignettes that are happening on the battlefield that are kind of, you know, pre-rehearsed or whatever. So you see this amazing display of just infantry and, you know, armor support and artillery pieces. But he's also got a really nice World War One battlefield that he built just behind that, and they'll do two different types of reenactments throughout the weekend. It's open for the weekend there, Saturday and Sunday. So just a really, really cool Living History event. It's very popular, and again, you know, College Station is in that area of Texas where you're kind of 2 hours to Dallas, Houston, Austin, you know, just those big cities. So it pulls a lot of people. You know, and you can get on there and you can apply if you want to be a tank driver, a tank gunner, a tank commander. You know, there's just this application process. So he pulls a lot of, you know, guys from other Living History units. Patton is always out there with his 3rd Army, and I know there's that 6th Armored Recon Troop or something, 6th CAV, whatever it is. I know some of the guys over there, and you know, just people from everywhere, going in their ETO uniforms, wools, and having fun. So yeah, Logan got to go out in his Pathfinder uniform, which if you've seen the picture, man, he's got a heck of an impression for being 16 years old. And he's really narrowed his focus to 507th Regiment. And so he knows the drop zone. They're just west of the Murderette River where they jumped in. And they hit their DZ. They hit on time, which is kind of interesting. You don't really hear a whole lot when you talk about the 506.
Yeah.
You know, missed drops all over Normandy, but 507th hit their target on time, and you know, they're Pathfinders, so, you know, setting up those Eureka beacons. And so yeah, he was kind of walking around, and you know, I think somebody had heard his name or his last name and like, hey, you know, Jeff Copsetta. He's like, yeah, it's my dad. You know,
that's cool. I'm happy he got to experience that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so it was really cool, and he actually ran into a few reenactors that worked with me when I was still over, you know, at the Nimitz. We've got one guy, he's active Army right now, and Logan recognized he's a real tall guy, right? Really tall. So I always called him Too Tall. So Logan, hey, Too Tall, and he came up and goes, only Jeff Copsetta calls me that. You know him? Logan's like, yeah, it's my dad. You know. So it was really cool just to hear, you know, oh yeah, your dad's on What's the Scuttlebutt podcast. Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, just to hear stuff like that at these Living History events. And Don, I know you get to do it, I think, more than I do, and you've been obviously doing this podcast a lot longer. So I know you've had those experiences, but you know, it's really nice to hear where it's kind of getting out.
Yeah,
and we're appreciated by these guys and we appreciate them working hard, putting these uniforms together, these impressions, doing the research, spending, you know, my gosh, the amounts of money that we're dropping on eBay and wheeling and dealing. And it's cool. It's a really cool community to be a part of.
You know, one of the hard things down here, which probably is super cool there with the guy owning his own land, but like when we're down here doing Living History events, most of it's at a park or a museum or some sort of private, you know, public owned land where, you know, you're lucky. Maybe you can dig a foxhole more than often than not. And I always think of this, like the coolest living history photo I'd ever seen. It was World War One, and it was just at a park. It was at property somewhere, probably over in Europe. Guy was doing World War One. He literally set up a circle of sandbags, and then brought in. I'm assuming he brought in because it's nice grass, and then he's just literally sitting in a, I don't know, 10-foot diameter circle of sandbags of just mud and clay, just like you can tell it's like 4 inches deep, and it's realistic, the crap that those guys fought in. And so he spent his weekend just sitting in this giant mud puddle to recreate that environment. And it's so cool to see that, but it's so hard to do in real time because most places won't let you destroy their soil or make that kind of a mess on their property. So everybody always has the fantasies of going out and digging foxholes and making a big mess, but at most places they won't let you crack that shovel.
I can see that
soil.
really cramping your style. I mean, if you guys are trying to put together an event, with accuracy and a feeling to it, man, I mean, I could see that really limiting you.
Yeah, the best you can do, because you can clean up it easily, is like obviously most of us have tents set up. You make kind of like the bivouac area.
Mm-hmm.
Just be a complete absolute slob when it comes to your tin cans and your empty gear and all that crap. You just eat your peaches and just drop the can because that's what you would have done in real life. It's not like you would have collected and went and put it in the trash can out in the jungle. It's like kick it in a pile. And then at the end of the weekend, you just kind of muster it up and throw away. But yeah, I was at a couple years back, I was at an event where they had a tree line and they let some people, some of the younger cats want to sleep in a foxhole. And so I was dumb enough to let somebody borrow my E-tool, which was a reproduction, which if you don't know, reproductions are not made to the standards of original or even a shovel you buy at Lowe's. And so long story short, it came back with the handle snapped in half and like I was like, oh God, that's
what is the reproduction cost of one of those?
about as much as an original. Seriously,
Really?
They're about $60, $70, depending on where you get them at. And so I kept the spade off that one, then I bought a new one, and then I was at an event somewhere, and someone had a whole stack of the shortened, just the replacement handles, like for the airborne. And so I bought a T-handle shovel. I just got to find an error-correct rivet. I don't want to put like a bolt and a nut through it because they have their rivets. So I got to find a error-correct rivet, which I think what I'll do is I've been thinking about, because I have so many damn M1 helmets that need restored. It would cost me a small fortune to send them out. But I do know Jay Murray sells the equipment and even the punch, so I might get some of that stuff and redoing some of my helmets and maybe use that, see if that punch will work on an industrial size rivet to put that handle back in there. But I haven't done anything down here. I had somebody reach out to me, ask me, he's like, hey, are you going to this event in April? And I had to tell him, and I feel bad because he lives in Naples. He lives 45 minutes further south than me. But I just told him, I said, man, with the way everything's going with paying, deductibles on 2 cars plus my roof, and then my monthly nut going up with insurance raises, like this year is not going to be the year for me driving 3-4 hours in a V8 truck. And, be honest with you, a lot of the biggest expense of living history after you invest in your gear is the food and drink to support your ass for 3 days. You're out in the sun, so you got to buy cases of water and all that stuff. So I just told him, I said, hopefully next year, but right now, any extra income I'm going is, getting all this crap. And, we're still suffering from a hurricane down here, which sounds crazy, but like my brother's come down here from Vegas because we were initially supposed to basically gut my dad's house and refit it. And so I was planning on doing drywall work this weekend, but luckily my dad got a little bit of a FEMA check in, so now we're just going to go there and put the outlets in, and he's going to pay someone else to put the drywall up. But yeah, like this whole area is just now really starting to get construction and everything going back from suffering through the hurricane, which, by the way, I don't know if we have people in Mississippi and Georgia, but our hearts go out to the people in those towns affected by those tornadoes. Seeing that footage is heartbreaking. At least down here in hurricane country, our houses are built out of cinder block with rebar and concrete poured down the center for hurricane codes. Those poor bastards are living in wood stick houses, and there's nothing left. I don't know if you guys seen any of that footage coming out of Mississippi or Georgia, but those tornadoes just annihilated those areas. It's just sad.
Oh, it was an interesting night. It went north of us, but we were preparing to batten the hatches down the other night.
Yeah.
But like I said, we were lucky on this one. It went north.
Yeah, I heard it was a big guy. I heard it was pretty damn wide. And so
yeah.
thoughts and prayers to all of them. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to our listeners. Like, somebody went on a shopping spree over like the last week. We've been moving some T-shirts, and we want to thank you guys a lot. There's not a whole hell of a lot of margin in that stuff, and we're not trying to make bank off T-shirts. We're more interested in the fact you guys are grassroots advertising, because I mean that's what shirts are truly doing. It's getting the word out there, spreading the word. I've had people comment about my hat, what's that, or the logo on the back of my truck. I'm sure Jeff's gotten out once or twice about the sticker on his truck. And so for you guys buying the shirts, I hope you enjoy them. There's definitely a ton of them on there. We got years worth of shirts that we just keep putting up there. Just keep in mind they are print to order. When you order those, I don't have a warehouse full of shirts. That's why we use that service. They are print to order. So what they do is you put your order in, and they'll wait 3 or 4 days to see if any other orders come in before they go rigging up an entire machine to print one shirt. And then they'll try to, they will, but there's like a 4 or 5 day gap, and then they'll print all of them out at one time and then ship them. So if you order a shirt, there is a little bit of a turnaround time, but that's why. It helps keep costs down here and get shirts out to you guys. And that's what allows us to have such a wide catalog of different logos, because we're not, order them up front and have them sitting around here. It's you choose the shirt you want, the size you want, the color you want, the quality of T-shirt, put in the order, and they'll ship it directly to you. And there's some mugs on there, the hats. I think I put some towels up there too. I haven't even checked out. But thank you guys so much for ordering those. If you want to support the channel, you can also go over to WTSPWWII.com. Click on the Patreon link. It's $1 a month. You can sign up, subscribe that way. Or to be honest with you, I'm sitting here talking about how times are tough right now. Just go watch our YouTube videos. Doesn't cost you a thing, and that goes to help support the show that way too. And we also want to hear from you. It's been a little bit of a dry week for the email. I don't know if the postman's tied up, putting everything on microfiche or what, but the mail call letters have been a little slow this week. So we want to hear from you. Send us an email to mailcall@WTSPWWII.com, or you can send it directly to our Instagram page and our Facebook page. I can't believe I went completely blank on that show we've been excited about the British Special
Rogue Heroes.
Jeff, you got a Jeep. How much wind blockage do you suppose that grill blocks from your radiator? It's a weird question.
Yeah, it is.
Well, here's why I bring it up. Because the British Special Forces cut out all those supports except for one. And so when you watch, and I bring it up too, because one, I noticed on the show, but since the show kind of got popular, I've been seeing more photos of people's recreation of those Jeeps on Facebook now. And they're cutting those supports out, and they're painting the whole damn things brown. And the only thing I can imagine, the only reason they cut those supports out was to increase wind flow because they're driving through the desert. But I can't imagine, I don't know how much increase it would help.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, from my perspective, so my Jeep only gets so much air going through the grill because it's my truck towing it.
You got a trailer queen, do you?
So, well, it's not even on a trailer. I have a hitch that it just bolts onto the bumper.
No.
Hooks on. And
I saw that photo. You got to tell people that's the knockdown piano wire from the road.
Right.
Keeps you from getting decapitated.
Yeah, no, that's just my little Aircore Jeep. I mean, it's gonna be so stripped down that it's gonna look so unique, because everybody that I know that has a Jeep, they've got gun mounts, they've got 8 musette bags hanging off of it, and jerry cans and spare tires and ammo cans, and like mine's just gonna be like, hey, I want to fit 10 guys in an aircrew uniform to hop on and drive from briefing to the bomber. Like, that's what mine's going to represent.
Well, that's usually what happens to Jeep drivers at large-scale living history events, especially at airports. Hey, Jeff, I'm in the parking lot. I got a lot of crap to carry. Our bivouac's 2 miles away. And you're just constantly picking people up all day long. Because that's what we would do. We'd call Chris or one of the other guys, like when we'd go to Sun and Fun and all that. It's like, I'm not dragging all this crap a mile and a half from the parking lot to where we're set up on the runway. And he would come and schlep you and all your gear back and forth. So that's what happens to a lot of those Jeeps. But I'm thrilled that you're getting it,
We're getting there. It's
reliable.
a process. It's a process. It's not the only old vehicle I got to maintain. So it's I got to pick and choose the time that I have and what's the next event, what do I need it for, and which one's which. And Yeah, but it's a cool problem to have for sure. But I was telling Henry when we first started, and Don, I haven't had a chance to really ask you this, and you probably know, right? I mean, of the three of us here, you guys, I feel, have seen. I mean, obviously Henry's in a different category, but when it comes to the Pacific miniseries,
In the box set.
Don, I think you've probably seen it more than I have.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume
Mm-hmm.
so, because I've probably only seen it maybe 6 times.
I think I watched it 6 times before I got the box set as a birthday present one year. So no, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it quite a few times.
There you go. And I don't watch like an episode here, an episode like if I'm going to watch it, it's going to be over the course of like a week. So it's a year. I watch it probably once a year, you know, unless it's like something special, like my brother. When I went up to Jersey that one time to see my brother, I was like, all right, dude, you're a former Marine. You've never seen this. We're going to sit here. We're going to make we're going to drink wine first.
Out of a mason jar, of course. That's how we do it here.
And then we're going to drink a ton of coffee, and we're going to watch the Pacific, and nothing else is going to stop us.
By the way, if you're listening to this podcast and maybe your uncle owns a vineyard, if we can get together and come up with mason jar wine, that'd be a great brand for us here at WTSP. Be the WTSP mason jar wine. You know, we can work something out. But yeah, so you get your popcorn, your wine, and you guys put the cucumbers on your eyes, and you put your hairs up in a towel.
Little exfoliation, right? So, all right. So I've been talking about it for the past few weeks. I'm taking it slow. I'm still reading with the old breed. I'm in no rush to finish it. There's times where, and right? So, all the distractions I've got here, right? Everybody running around, and there's a new puppy. And so I'm like, man, I feel like I've read this same paragraph 14 times. That's because I have, right?
Somehow my dog, by the way, found my bookmark. Carrie's like, whose bookmark is this? I'm like, where the hell did he find that? So the new Boston's like into everything. Like he found my missing bookmark. So
did he eat the bookmark?
No,
Jeff. I don't even mean
he just drugged it outside where he takes everything. If you're missing anything in the house, go look out in the backyard. It's probably sitting there. But go ahead, puppies. We love puppies here on the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast.
So
real quick before we get back to it, can you make dog tags for our dogs? You have a stamping machine, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to make us some WTSP dog tags for our dogs, and one for me too. That'd be cool.
Yeah, y'all send me the info, whatever y'all want on it.
Yeah.
And we'll do it. I'll knock it out next time I'm out there for sure.
Sweet.
I don't know why I didn't think of that sooner. Golly. Let's see, where was I? So yeah, all right.
Dogs, kids.
Watching the Pacific.
One reading a paragraph, same paragraph at the time. Wine, cucumbers, exfoliant. Pedicures, manicures.
Repeated interruptions by Don.
We're used to it.
Which we have to forgive because he's the producer, so he gets to do what he wants.
I've been downgraded to the producer.
Well,
producer's one step up from an intern. I should know. I was a producer for 6 years.
What would be the exalted title you would prefer? I'm sorry, I didn't
host. I mean, look at much
host. All right, I'm sorry.
Oh man. Okay, so yeah. Let me spit it out before I lose it again. So I just saw that our good friend, Freddie Joe Farnsworth just celebrated a birthday.
Aww,
so
he's old.
He is. I texted him and I said, "Man, you are gracefully transitioning from USMC to AARP."
If you want to know how old he is, go back and watch a box set of Band of Brothers. You can see him as a young guy at the boot camp yelling at all the actors.
Right. So I saw where. In the Pacific, I think it was We Happy Few that posted on social media about him playing or portraying Lieutenant Stumpy Stanley.
Yeah.
And it kind of like, wait a minute, something's not lining up in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at the part in your dad's book where they've come back from Peleliu. They're in between Peleliu and Okinawa, so just read the forward. For the Okinawa portion, right?
Okay.
And so just dealing with all of that, that healing, or supposed to be a healing process for him. The part where he just dug Men at War book by Ernest Hemingway out of the trash can.
Right.
Okay, so, guys, and you're probably going to laugh in my face, and you have every right to. But the lieutenant that the first line is to your father when they're standing there getting their grapefruit juice from the Red Cross nurses.
Right.
And he's whatever. He's like, all right, guys, keep moving.
Come on, Marine, you've had your look.
Yeah, you've had your look. Right. Guys, I thought that was Haldane's replacement as the company commander. I thought that's who Lieutenant Mack was.
No. He's just the guy whose job it is to make sure the guys don't get out of line with the Red Cross nurses.
Well,
he's the officer that you see for the rest of the series.
Is it? Oh.
Well, so Mac was actually kind of they did a little bit of that character compression thing there, Jeff.
Okay.
I know, like that scene where they're getting off and the girls are handing them the juice.
Yes, I remember now. Yep.
I mean, that really happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they filmed it just the way it happened. The lieutenant, because actually that's a story Dad told me when I was a kid. You know, okay, you've had your look. Come on, Sonny, move out. Which he called him Sonny in real life in the book, as you probably just saw. That was not Mac in real life. Okay, but as we know, because they had to use that character for a couple things, and especially on Okinawa. Have you gotten to Okinawa yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll come to another lieutenant, or maybe. See, here's the thing, and this is what's confusing me. I've got to go back and I'm pressing through on my project, as y'all know. But there was another guy that my dad called Shadow, and I can't remember if Shadow was in with the old breed.
I know the name does not. That must have been one that was pulled out of the original, because that name does not ring a bell at all.
Yeah, Shadow was a guy who's actually named George Loveday. Not at all a very popular officer at all. And there's a lot in the unpublished stuff that goes into that, and I'll touch on some of that. But Mac had the bravado, and he was the one who was always talking about, the first Jap I see, I'm going to charge him with my K-bar, my 45, and Snafu and my dad and all the guys who've been through. They're just rolling their eyes like, you got to be kidding me, man. But he goes on to say Mac really wasn't a bad guy. He actually ended up being a pretty good officer, but he just had to he had to get broken, But
well, a lot of that too is to build up their own self-confidence so they can perform in the way they think they should.
Right.
So this guy, this name Mac, he doesn't really exist in real life.
No, he did exist in real life.
But what Henry's saying is they use the actor to play the two roles just to get that one scene out of the way. So
Jeff, in part, I'm sorry, Don, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
In part 9 on Okinawa, you see the Japanese charging down the hill, and you see Sledge with the M1. Wait till they're close. That, and then you've got Kathy, the machine gunner. They did a lot of and they did this with some of Lecky's characters too. There was a lot of combining characters and taking things that happened to somebody else, but putting it on a character they had, as we've talked about, just because you can't have 20 damn named people per episode. But the officer who comes along and I sent you up here, I'm serving you up here with a goddamn sidearm, and you just gave away our position.
I was here to kill Japs. So it doesn't matter what kind of weapon I use. That's it.
Exactly. So they've got Mac doing that. But in real life, it was Lieutenant Loveday or Shadow, who came along the line when they were placed up near Half Moon Hill on a little escarpment. And he just came along the line, just berating and cursing all these guys as they're firing at the Japanese coming out of this culvert. And
well, I mean, he's also the one that, gives the fire mission that your dad calls to drop the mortar in on the house with the caved-in roof.
I need a round to the right of the house with the tomb. Yeah.
Right. He's also the one that threatens to court-martial him the next time they touch a Japanese prisoner. So, I mean, he's around so much. He's the only officer that they really gets any kind of light on Okinawa. So I just assumed this is Akak's replacement because I don't remember I don't remember, and I feel bad saying this on the air. If Freddie listens to this, like, sorry, dude, like, I don't remember you in the Pacific. I don't
No,
remember.
his scene was he had one line, and he talked
Yeah.
about when he's on the show. Basically, or Freddie talked about. I guess when Freddie was supposed to, he's basically a guy who relays the mission to Akak, and then Akak relays it. Like Freddie, it was like a literally 3-line.
Well, no, Akak was gone at that point. Remember, Akak was killed.
Oh yeah. But it was anyhow. It was like a 3-line. Just it was real quick.
Yeah. So the thing was, Jeff, I think.
Because Stumpy's the XO.
Yeah, but he ended up taking over K Company. I think they had to use Mac because they wanted to show an officer doing just being an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And that was accurate, right? But Stumpy Stanley was very highly thought of. Lieutenant Stanley was very well thought of and a respected guy and a respected replacement for Captain Haldane. But I'm like you guys. I didn't even realize Freddie Joe had been in the Pacific until I circled back around to all this and started really watching it and then getting to know him. And I'm like, oh man, you mean that was you in part 9? Like I said, this is it. Where's the rest of your guys? Like I said, this is it. You know, and like you just were remembering, Don, Freddie Joe didn't even want to do that scene, but he was the only one who could even yell loud enough to be heard over the tanks and the Amtraks.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, fine, I'll do it. But yeah, I mean, Lieutenant Stanley, if they had given Okinawa more airtime, which they probably wanted to, and then the budget limitations just cut it shorter than they wanted to be, then probably Lieutenant Stanley would have had more of a role.
You know,
I think
that's kind of a good hypothetical mind game. Is like, I was going to bring this up later. So the new project that Hanks and them have been working on for the Air Corps, it appears to be a Disney Plus project now. It doesn't look like it's going on HBO. I think I saw
Apple TV, isn't it?
Apple.
Oh, sorry, Apple TV.
Apple TV.
I get them
Yeah.
all confused.
I
But
knew
anyhow.
HBO did not want it.
Well, see, that was my question. I didn't know if they didn't want it or if they couldn't match the budget because these streaming services make so much more money compared to the cable services because a lot more people are quote unquote cutting the cord. And so that was a kind of a fun thought is if the streaming services were around back then and there was more money being thrown around to get new projects, would either the Band of Brothers or the Pacific been either longer or had more bigger budget because the money that would be available to do it like the new ones now?
I can remember when the Pacific came out in 2010, everybody was comparing. And look, there, like we've talked about on this show before, guys, there was a lot of antipathy toward the Pacific because people are like, well, it wasn't like Band of Brothers. Well, you know, Band of Brothers came out and people got the box set and they watched it on TV. There was no streaming in 2000, right? Well, or 01, whenever it came out. But when the Pacific came out, streaming was starting to get to be a thing. And so I remember some of the naysayers, I mean, people who were just panning it and really not wanting it to succeed, saying, well, you know, the first, like the average number of viewers per episode with Band of Brothers was X number of million.
No, it's because less people had HBO.
Right. And in the Pacific, those numbers were a lot lower. And you had people coming back saying, well, look, man, people are not, they're not subscribing to HBO and watching this like they did 10 years ago at that time, 10 years before. Because now you have streaming. It's just people are consuming it in a different way.
And you also got to remember at the time, HBO was the pretty much only cable show channel doing the Deadwoods, the people want to kill me, the mobster show,
The
Sopranos, Oz. They were groundbreaking with all that stuff. Oz, The Sopranos, Band of Brothers, Rome, which killed Deadwood. They were the only channel out there doing that kind of work. And so since they were the only ones doing it, that's where you had to go to see it. And so their subscriber base, well, I mean, for the longest time, from like the 70s until probably the mid-2000s, HBO was the premium cable station that you had to get if you wanted to see anything, whether it was Star Wars, all that stuff. It was on HBO. That was the top of the stack for cable premium TV channels. And by the time that Pacific rolled out, more and more people were cutting the cords, but now you had other stations doing type of work. And by the way, when it's not the Band of Brothers, well, you know what is? the Band of Brothers. So go watch that, and then
And I will say, I
Pacific.
think a lot of those people, a lot of that negativity worked itself out, and I think a lot of those people became converts, me included.
Yeah.
As we have discussed, and I've discussed it with other people. Jeff, we were kind of jumping around there. Did I address where you were going with your original question?
He couldn't figure out who Freddie Joe was playing.
No, I knew who Freddie Joe played. I just when I saw that and I saw the name, and I'm literally at that point in the book where Stanley is, goes from XO to the CO, of course, the moment Haldane goes down. And yeah, so I was just thinking like, oh, that was the guy, because I didn't know Lieutenant Mac. I didn't know his name. I never caught that kid's name.
Well, they don't call him that. They don't call him that.
So I just assumed he was the new CO. So when I see Stanley's name come up in your dad's book, I'm like, oh, that's what that cat's name was. Then within a day or two, I see, happy birthday to Freddie Joe, who played Lieutenant Thomas Stumpy Stanley on the Pacific. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not who I thought it was. Who the heck was the CO of K-35 if not Lieutenant Mac? It should have been Stanley. So I see what they did there, and I can appreciate it more because it would be so the first time I saw the series too, it was very confusing because I was expecting Band of Brothers, different uniforms, different setting. So it did take a little bit, and I did read Hugh Ambrose's The Pacific prior to ever seeing the miniseries. I didn't know.
That probably didn't help your level of confusion.
No, not at all. Not at all. That was what I assumed The Pacific was. I mean, it was supposed to be that. So, but look, I've never had streaming services or HBO or any of that stuff. So I was never on. I mean, if it didn't come on, like the TV, if I had time to watch TV, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I didn't get on YouTube and watch stuff, So I was kind of behind the bar there. So, yeah, I read Hugh Ambrose's book, and it was a picture of the cover from the movie, right? The dust jacket. So I was like, oh, I got to figure out a way to see this thing. But I never saw it until my wife bought the box set. I don't know how many years later. So I just, I went by what I remembered from that, and I had the DVDs of Band of Brothers. So, yeah, it was, I guess, disappointing as it wasn't my expectation. But Henry, I think, makes a good point, and I think a lot of us were like that too. This isn't Band of Brothers. It's not supposed to be Band of Brothers. It has nothing to do with Band of Brothers. This is how the story needed to be told. And I see now, I appreciate it so much more every time I do a little deep dive, and every time I do watch it. I appreciate it more and more for those nuances, kind of like that too. Lieutenant Mac and his character and the different people that kind of got compressed into who he was, really helps keep the light bright on Haldane. Yeah. Because to really accurately, I mean, we all know Scott Gibson. I mean, I don't know. I can't even say enough about how he portrayed Haldane, right? If you have that similar performance, and Lieutenant Stanley, like you said, was an outstanding CO on Okinawa, you already have so much confusion. You're trying to keep up with who the heck is who. It's just all the guys in green for most of the civilians watching it, right?
And helmet.
So if you have these two really outstanding company commanders, they're going to start bleeding together. So and that's just my assumption, is maybe that was kind of done to, you've got Haldane, who he is, and then you've got the fresh kid that just got his lieutenant's bars. That's not a bad guy, just a little green, at Pavuvu, and actually does a good enough job. I mean, I don't see him being a terrible commander in Okinawa. It wasn't like this guy was just trash. It wasn't like the Winners to Lieutenant Dyke situation. Right?
There's a lot more in the unpublished stuff on Mac, and you're correct. He was not a bad guy, and I think by the end, my dad even, and the other guys too. When I speak of my dad, I'm speaking more collectively. There was a level of respect for him, but they were really leery of him too, because by then these guys, some of them had been through Gloucester, certainly Peleliu. In my dad's case, he had just been through Peleliu. They were not looking for a CO who's like, I'm going to put my K-bar, and all that bravado crap. But they had to, as far as the Pacific, like I go back to what I said. I'm telling you, I think the original intent and if Bruce McKenna were sitting here, you could probably confirm this for me. They probably wanted to do at least 2 parts on Okinawa.
Yeah, because they did 2 parts on Peleliu.
Huh?
Yes, because they did 2 parts on Peleliu, so it would have made sense that they would have done, because they spent so much effort getting that mud correct and the set design.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure.
And I think just budget started getting tight, and they had to go with what they had, but they had to have that Mac character because they needed those disreputable or undesirable traits in an officer so that certain other things could be portrayed. One of them, it highlighted what a good officer Akak was, but you got to have the Mac character. Huh?
The yin to the yang.
Exactly. You got to have the Mac character. I send you up here, you're supposed to be observing. Then, because you got to have Sledge saying, what differences make what weapon? And all that really happened. I mean, it really happened, as you will see, Jeff. I mean, you've read the book already. I know this isn't new to you. But yeah, like Don said, the yin to the yang. So
it makes perfect sense.
Another fun character to look for, because when you watch the series, he's there, but you don't realize he's there until the P-48 wing when Gibson's behind the chicken wire.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, well, who the hell is this Gibson cat? And then you go back, oh, he's the guy who shot the cow from the train, and then he's the guy who choked out the sick Jap at the...
Oh, yep.
And so when you go back and rewatch and you're actually actively looking, you can see his change in personality from the way he acted on the train versus that. But when you're watching it the first time through, you're like, I don't remember this cat.
And Don, until you said that, I never even realized it. And then I'm like, wait a minute, that's the guy Don saw. Oh, wait, he's the dude who chokes the guy on
and he's the guy who shoots.
He's the guy who yeah.
Yep. And Lecky's all pissed off that he shot. And perfect example, it's hard to believe they did this, but it's not. Speaking of people who were left out, if you read A Helmet for My Pillow, one of Lecky's best friends, other than Chicken and Chuckler, was a guy named Red, and he's not in the story at all. He's not in the Pacific at all. Like the whole thing about him and hiding under his helmet, and they all played a joke where they kicked his helmet off and shot up at the Thompson, and he freaked out. All that stuff about Red. And just, I think it was actually the scene where Lecky is in Gloucester, and his boondockers get stuck in the mud, and he says, kill me, would somebody be a good guy and kill me? Either that was Chicken, or that was either Chuckler or Red who did that. I think it was actually Chuckler who actually said that. He was mired down in the mud. But once again, it was one of those situations where the action and the story was more important than who it actually happened to, and so why not put it in this scene where Frenchie does what he does instead of creating 4 scenes to tell that story? Just, okay, the story's the important part, not who said it, so we'll just add it to this scene and get that across. Speaking of, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, we tend to kind of overlook the fact that they're finishing up the series too. They got to have Iwo Jima on here.
Yeah, exactly.
You had to have 6 minutes of Iwo Jima to tell that entire story, to wrap up what Barcelona has going on. I mean, there was so much. I'll be honest, I don't know if I could have taken another Okinawa episode, man. That was so intense.
Yeah,
the civilian consideration, man. And,
when they go in the hut and the baby's crying and my dad holds the lady, I mean, I remember Bruce telling me how they were going to change that, because that is, you will see, and you probably remember anyway from having read WTOB, I mean, that's not what really happened. And he and I kind of argued about it a little bit, but he said, no, trust me, Henry, we wanted to show your father's empathy more than we had. And so here's how we're going to do it. Trust me, it works, and yeah.
You know what that scene reminds me of? And it's similar, but not all at all the same. That scene reminds me of the scene in Platoon where Charlie Sheen walks into the hut and the Dylan's brother comes in and they have that conversation. It's very reminiscent of that scene out of Platoon.
I know what you're. Man, it's been a long time.
Yeah, Bunny comes in. Platoon. It's very, very similar. It's almost like when they were writing a screenplay, did they read that out of your dad's book? I mean, it's very.
I got to be honest.
It's different, but very similar.
Her head apart, though. Either.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying the whole scene up until that part, it's very similar.
Yeah,
it has the same feeling to
it. Watching it again and seeing that scene, I mean, it was beautifully shot. Yeah. I mean, when he lays the Tommy gun down and that ray of light is shining right on the Tommy gun, and you see his finger come off the.
Yes,
I'm a little surprised that didn't get more notoriety.
Yeah,
in a good way. I mean, it was just a really. I mean, it's a deeply personal thing for me, because I know it pissed my dad off when that guy, and little tidbit from the unpublished stuff, my dad talks about the guy who shot that woman in a little bit more detail, as I bring into my manuscript. But
since we're on the topic of books in the Pacific, you guys see the picture behind me?
Love it.
For those listening to the audio version, what is that picture behind me, Henry?
That's pushing up into Guadalcanal. I've got my dad's copy of the Old Breed, which is the 1st Marine Division unit history. And I want to find that very picture. I know we've talked about this.
The picture, poor Sid's cut off because of my background and the way Zoom works.
I was about to say, I can't see Phillips in there.
That's the picture where Sid Phillips is allegedly urinating. And he refers to it in his book, You'll Be Sorry. And on the reprints, that is the cover. And so for most the part, history has said that is day one on Guadalcanal after the beach landings. As what platoon was Phillips in? Do you remember?
Platoon? He was H-21.
Yeah, H-21. So he was H Company.
2nd Battalion, 1st Marines.
2nd Battalion, 1st Marines.
Same as Lecky.
Yes. And if you actually Google Sid Phillips USMC, that photo will come up. And in the book, he says, well, people ask me, how do I know it's me? He said, because I remember I was taking a piss, and everybody said, well, you're famous now. He said, what are you talking about? We saw the flash bulb, and then one of his guys asked the photographer, why would you use the flash in the jungle in the daytime? And he said it removes the shadows from the foliage, and that's how Sid knows that's him urinating. Sorry, Jeff. The reason I bring that up, Henry, you're writing a book. We've had plenty of authors on. How important is accuracy in photographs in a book about history, as far as getting that right?
Well, it's important to me. After we discuss this, can I show this picture that's up and read the captions that Sid
Actually,
Phillips
please
wrote
read
on?
it now, because it'll go to reinforce what I'm talking about.
So here is, and this thing's getting old, but all right, that's the same picture. Can you guys see the handwriting on it? All right. That's Sid Phillips. This is my dad's copy of this book, but he sent it to Sid. Sid wrote these notes in it, and Sid sent his to my dad. I've told you guys that before. All right, so the caption to that photo, Don, the actual caption says, relief moving up. Men of the 7th Marines take a break before going forward to relieve another Marine unit. All right, in his handwriting, Sid wrote, no, H-21, 30 minutes after landing on Guadalcanal, August 7, 1942. And then top of the next page. I was told somebody had just taken our picture and, quote, Phillips, you're going to go down in history taking a leak, end quote.
And what was the original caption under that photo that your father said was wrong?
Well, Phillips said it was wrong because my dad wasn't involved. Yeah, but it says relief moving up. Men of the 7th Marines take a break before going forward to relieve another Marine unit.
Okay. The reason I ask is I'm staying with the boys, John Basilone story.
Yeah.
And his unit didn't land until September 18th. But we know that photo was taken on day one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading through this book. Page 185 has that photo. And the caption underneath it says, Sergeant Basilone's 1-5 Marines on the trail to Makanaku. So they have completely misidentified that photo. Now, I doubt the author did that. I'm sure it's probably somebody at the publishing house, the editor. Someone decided to put that photo in this book and state that was that was 1-5 and that was Basilone's group.
So he's saying Basilone was in the 5th Marines?
It just says Sergeant Basilone's 1-5 Marines on the trail.
Yeah, that'd be 1st Battalion, 5th.
1st Battalion, 5th Marines. Well, because he was on Guadalcanal. He got reassigned before he went to Okinawa after the drive. But the fact is, they didn't land until September 18th.
No, but Basilone was 7th Marines. He was under Chesty Puller in 7th Marines.
Okay, so
right, Jeff?
Well, I can tell you because I looked.
I thought.
Well, okay, go ahead.
He was under Puller because he has a lot in here about Puller.
And Puller was not 5th Marines; he was 7th Marines, and then Puller took over 1st Marines before Peleliu.
Yeah, so the photo is wrong in two ways. It says Sergeant Basilone's 1-5 Marines on the trail, and so I was like, I doubt the author did that. Somebody at the editor or the publishing just threw that photo in there for whatever reason.
Yeah,
but
I mean, Don, I'll tell you, and our buddy Dave Holland is not a big fan of that book.
Yeah. Well, it's a great photo, and I'm enjoying the book, but like I said, one of the things that caught me off guard is it's written in the first person, but we know Baz Luhrmann didn't survive, and so like, okay, I suspended my belief. I'm the author's doing a good job. I'm believing he just got a shitload of information from the family, and we're gonna take everything at its word. But then you get to a well publicized photo like that, and it's completely misidentified. Like, okay, well, is everything else in here cool? So that's just it's just one of those things that bumps you. You know, it's like I'm taking everything at its face value in here, especially the a lot of the stuff that's being portrayed in the words of Baz Luhrmann, and especially when it comes to chase and tail and all that stuff. But then when you get to a photo like that that's well documented, that it's on the first day of D-Day and who it is, and then like, well, there's Baz Luhrmann's fifth. It's like. But it's not taking away anything from the book. It's just interesting that something like that would end up in this book.
I'm just surprised they're claiming Baz Luhrmann was in the 5th Marines.
Well,
I mean, that's a pretty
not
big...
in the book, but just in that photo. So that just goes to show you. I don't think the photo was submitted by the author. I think somebody at the publishing house put it in there. Maybe they're trying to balance out the pages. I don't know. Somehow that photo got put in the book, and it was misidentified in 2 different ways. And it's just like, okay, come on.
I think it's extremely important because, I mean, from like living history reenactor perspective, guys are picture thumpers.
Yes.
Right? So on this picture, look, and okay, great. However, think about what, like, that's a perfect example. The caption of it says this, but actually, and we've had Scott Freund on here before. And, he's a perfect prime example of somebody got fed up of, wanting to watch a documentary about Midway. And, they're showing footage from, kamikazes off Okinawa. Or, oh, this is the battle for Tarawa. Like,
yes.
No, that's no way, shape, or form Tarawa. Like, it's not even close to Tarawa. So
here's the big red one landing on D-Day, and they cut the films of Marines on Guam. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, it happens, right? I mean, that stuff happens all the time. So, yeah, I think it's really important because a picture's worth 1,000 words, like they say. And how many people sit there and read these books cover to cover? They just look at the pictures and look at the caption, like, oh, okay, that's that. And it's in a book. It must be right. And, you guys have read enough and you've been around it long enough. And I hope all of our listeners are kind of the same way. Like, you have to take every book at face value. And I don't mean to discredit any memoir. Yeah. But let's face it, that war is this big. And, how everybody, how people perceive things, how Don and I can watch the same hockey game and get 2 different things out of it. He's going to see it in a different light than I'm going to see it, and we're both going to try to explain it to somebody else in a different way. And so say, look, I was there at this hockey game, and this person's taking notes, and what I said to them is only how I saw that.
There's your perspective.
Perfect example. Thank you, JT Rocker, who is joining us on YouTube. I was wrong. I was said that it was either Chuckler or Red that said be a good guy and shoot me, and JT Rocker pointed out actually it was Hoosier that said shoot me. So per example, even my memory of seeing that series and reading the book, it was Hoosier that actually said be a good guy. So
in the book, it was Hoosier who said that?
Yes, and not Lecky. So
see, I just reread Helmet like last summer, and I got to reread it
because you had Hoosier, you had Chuckler, you had Red, you had Chicken. Because
and J.P. Morgan's made up, right?
Yes,
yes, he is a made-up character. Yes, Jeff. He's
a made-up character because the guy that he was based off of did not want to sign over his likeness rights to HBO. I saw that in an interview. It was somewhere I was watching a video. I may even been about the making of the Pacific. It was somewhere they were talking to. I saw a video somewhere on YouTube. It was talking about Baz Luhrmann and his friends, and the guy who was one of Baz Luhrmann's friends who helped informate. He just, for whatever reason, didn't want to sign over his likeness rights, and so they said, "Okay, you're now." And the fact that he used J.P. Morgan, which I think was dumb because that's the guy who made J.P. Morgan Chase. Is that who that is? The famous banker? It's like, why wouldn't you choose a more generic name, not one that's, J.P. Morgan? That's a huge name in the financial world.
Yeah, it really is.
It's like, oh, wow, J.P. Morgan. J.T. Rocker said, it's like the beginning of Ken Burns' The War. The Second World War II was fought in thousands of places, too many for one accounting. To Henry's point or Jeff's point of it being such a, small view of a big war. And so appreciate JT coming in, and shout out to Brian Larkin too, who was talking in the chat. So,
that's my cousin.
We're loving having the chat here, and now that we're centralized and we're just streaming directly to YouTube now, everybody can come and join in the conversation. So thank you guys so much for joining in.
That is cool. I like having that.
Yeah, super cool. What's up, Brian? Thanks
Jeff,
man, he's a big fan. He's a big fan of the show, and he's got a really cool. And I think I've shared on the show before. So Brian's father, Brian's my cousin. So Brian's father married one of my dad's sisters. Well, his father is named after his father's uncle, who was killed at the opening stage of the Battle of the Bulge. And I think I shared a picture with you guys that I had somebody colorize. So, yeah, he's got a really cool link to World War II.
I want to get your go ahead. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No.
I want to get your opinion on a living history display item. So, as you guys know, I've talked about this in the past. One of the things I was super happy to get with was an original fixed bale front seam helmet, yada, yada, yada. Got my plastic Hollywood Holly liner in it, blah, blah, blah. A couple months back, I came across another fixed bale helmet. The liner's not correct, but one of the bales is missing. Now, I bought replacement bales, and I know a guy who can weld. But I thought, why not just sew a chin strap on the one bale that's on here, leave the other bale broken off for the time being, and use this as an example of why they got rid of the fixed bales, because they tend to snap off. Instead of restoring it temporarily, just tie one strap on there and take it to living history displays along with the other one, showing how easily those things broke off, and maybe even use it as a raggedy-ass Marine impression with having just a one strap instead of taking it over to my welding guy and having him weld a new bale on there. What do you think?
Nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, it's a great educational tool. I think, you're really reaching an even smaller population of people that, about a fixed bale helmet. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. It's either that, or I'd have a little table display of a chunk of plywood or some wood from a ammo crate, cut a hole in it, and have your steel pot upside down. There's a kitchen sink. Yeah, history display too. It doesn't matter if it's got a chin strap or not.
Well, one of the things I like to do, because I have different impressions, especially because I have so many damn Marine Corps haversacks, is I like to show the differences. Especially the Marine Corps is well documented. I like to show the differences in haversacks from the beginning of the war to the end of the war, when materials got more strict, more harder
rationed,
to get, and more importantly, when it comes to the haversacks, they need equipment done quickly. And so when you look at the early haversacks, they got the nice flaps that fold in, and by 1945, it was basically a potato sack that folded over with some straps on it. And since I own that stuff, I like to show people, here's how it was at the beginning with they had, leggings, a perfect example. They used to have the nice brass, more expensive claps on them. By the end of the war, it was just black metal. Just get it done, get it produced, and get it out there. And showing that it's a way to offer a little bit different display opposed to everything else people have. I like to show the difference between, because people don't think, web gear's web gear. First aid pouch is first aid pouch. No, not necessarily. Marine Corps had a different pouch, different color. Their web belts didn't have U.S. stamped on it. And if you have it, it's one of those things I like to point out to people. And so I thought it'd be kind of cool too to have, here's the fixed bale helmet. And the reason they got rid of the fixed bale helmets, guys would sit on their helmets, the bales would break off. That's why they went to swivel bale. And here's an example of a fixed bale helmet where the bale's missing, which is why they ended up going to swivel bale after a while. Just like the reason they got rid of the Holly liners and went to the compression liners, because they found out quickly that, paper doesn't hold up in humidity very well, especially when you're doing amphibious landings.
Right. And I think it's always been interesting too. Marine Corps impressions are always there's got to be something that a little odd or unique about it, because they had to be such scroungers. So I think I wouldn't say if I saw a living history display of a guy portraying a Marine with an Army pistol belt or with an Army first aid pouch on there, or something like that. It's not something that's like, that's wrong. No, nothing wrong about it. They were stealing everything they could from the Army, right? So a Marine impression, you can easily make the case to have one or two pieces of Army gear on there, but it doesn't go the other way around.
Yeah.
You can't have 29th Infantry Division with a Marine
Yeah.
Corps piece on there, like,
Well, in the
it's
Marine-
kind of weird.
And the Marine Corps is even more like, okay, if you're doing a Guadalcanal impression, you got to have the white T-shirt. You can't have the green T-shirt because the green T-shirt didn't come out until Peleliu, and you got to have, this canteen flap cover because that canteen flap cover didn't come out until this mission. You got to have this.
Yeah, they had 4 canteen covers.
And
but
Guadalcanal, I can't do a Guadalcanal impression because I don't have a 1901 Springfield. I only have an M1 Karen. So the Marine Corps stuff's really hard to pinpoint a certain mission.
Stole it from the Marines.
Well,
and my dad's HBT cap, the guys we've talked about, his HBT cap is an Army pattern.
Yeah,
I believe.
Well, the early Marine Corps ones were.
They
didn't
weren't-
have the EGA on them.
which
It
I
was
didn't
the
know.
Army.
I didn't know that until you pointed out. It wasn't until they put the EGA logo that they moved the stitching over because the stitching was in the dead middle. And so once they adopted the silkscreen EGA, they had to move the stitching over to make room for that. But I never realized that until you pointed out, Henry. I think when Jeff, when Henry's on like the third, fourth time, I had my P-44. You're like, no, that's the P-44. The original ones were all the same. It didn't matter if it was Navy, Army, Air Corps, the mechanics. Well, the mechanics had a longer build. They had a little bit different, but yeah, all the rest of them had the same hats on.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's what makes Marine Corps impressions so cool, I think. I mean, hey, you stole it from an Army dude or, whatever, because you had 6 Marine divisions fighting alongside 22 Army divisions in the Pacific. I mean, they crossed paths so many times. They're out there getting all kinds of stuff, swapping whatever,
Not to mention
trading off. And
the George F. Elliott got sunk with all their gear on it. So by that time,
and all our ass wipe.
Now, Don, you brought up something interesting. I didn't realize the green T-shirt came out at Peleliu. I thought it didn't come out till 45.
It may
really EWO.
Yeah, it may have been. I think it was EWO. You're right. It was EWO because actually you can see in the series when Basilone goes to Pendleton to start training, that's when he's wearing the green T-shirt. But yes, and it makes sense because you're in the jungle. You got this bright white shirt on before you get sweaty and dirty. You basically have a nice white target right over your juggler for a sniper. But yeah, so early on, and like you have to have the white shirts, and of course I have the ones. If you get the authentic ones, they have the real big necks on them, so you can fit them over your helmet. They have their super
Is that
wide.
why they did that?
I'm speculating. I don't know. I speculate because it only makes sense if you think about it. They got these big white ass necks on them, and let's look at the trousers. Everybody thinks the Navy's the ones with the quote unquote bell bottoms. No, if you look at HPT pants or wool pants, my hypothesis is the legs are so damn big, so you can put your trousers on with your boots on. Because if you think about it, if the trouser legs were smaller, imagine how hard it would be to put your pants on with your boots on. And so why would you need to leave your boots on? Why
I thought maybe, and you, that's a really good assumption there. I don't know. Maybe one of our listeners can help us figure that out, but I just thought it was literally the ease and mass production from the textile perspective. The T-shirts weren't made like they are now.
Yeah.
From the way I understood it, they were kind of made as one piece, so they weren't made in like halves that joined with seams, underneath and around. So that's just what I thought, and it was just kind of, you didn't have that tapered, catered neck. The same thing with the trouser legs; you just cut a rectangle.
Well, I knew I knew the trousers was one length fits all, which made sense. Once again, you're trying to produce a mad gear. We'll make a few different waist sizes, but the length, here's your pants, go get them hemmed. We're not going to make 34s, 32s, 30. No, we'll make them all one length, take them, get them, cut them off, and get them hemmed, which makes sense. Right. But if you've ever tried, you can put your trousers on with your boondockers or your service boots on because the pant legs are so damn wide.
I mean, yeah, I guess if you're walking around in your skivvies and your boondockers, I guess it makes sense.
Well, even the Army stuff, the wools you can put on with your, if you're trying
to be honest, a tapered leg would have been a little bit more efficient because you've got so much material. A lot of times I would use, and I know they didn't do this, I don't care, but I would take a deal of duct tape. I'd cuff the leg and fold it over and duct tape that and then put my leggings on. So I wasn't constantly dealing with them coming. This is when I was on the battlefield running around because in about 10 minutes, you look, like an RAM. I still wanted to have a nice uniform appearance for the rest of this show, this performance for live people. So I would tape my trousers down, and if they were tapered, you wouldn't have so much material trying to tuck a bell bottom into,
Well, it's funny thing you say that. When I first before I started reenacting, like I said many times before, my first impression logistically was a huge mistake, was Marine Corps, because at the time no one was doing Marine Corps stuff. I was the only one there. But the first HBTs I got, not knowing any better, I got off of eBay from a company in China. And the damn pant legs were tapered. They were literally, it looked like I had skinny, and I was like, why would you taper these things? And so I returned them and found quote-unquote stovepipe legs, as sometimes they're referred to, but I couldn't understand why the Chinese knockoffs just, the buttons were fine, the patterns are fine, but literally the legs were tapered, and it looked ridiculous.
You American, you have big reg. We taper our reg. You wore HBT, we taper reg.
But we just got shut down.
Nah, that's my other podcast that YouTube cancels all the time.
You get down there and you tell me if you see creases on these trousers.
Yeah.
Come over here and tell me if you see.
What's up,
Flowers
Dennis
in your
Blocker?
pants,
Dennis
Riccati,
Blocker's
what
on
were
here
you
too.
thinking?
Your boy Dennis is on here. Dennis Blocker's checking in.
Yeah, Dennis, I talked to him earlier today. Man, he's such an awesome cat. God, I love that guy.
He asked a question. What was the Army division that the Marines actually respected and called them a Marine division? I think it was maybe on Guam, or was it Saipan? Do you guys know the answer to that question?
Was it the 164th?
I'm not sure. He's asking.
They called them the 164th Marines.
So that had to be it.
That was on
regiment.
Guadalcanal. Yeah, it's a regiment. Yeah.
Not a division. That's interesting.
They're probably not on Saipan, Doc. So that's where the big Smith controversy was.
No, I'm just reading the question as it was written, but yeah.
Yeah, so that makes me think: could it be the Second Infantry Division from World War One? Because the 2ID patch, it's the second largest Army division patch, and Don, you can probably Google this pretty quick. So the biggest one was the one I wore, right? First Cav. That's that big goofy Norman shield.
Yeah.
See. First Cav division has a huge patch, but second ID was second only in size to that, and the face, the profile is General Lejeune. It's actually General Lejeune on the second Infantry Division patch, and so I don't know if that's
second
what Dennis
ID
is
patch.
Yeah,
Second Infantry Division.
Yeah, that was made in his likeness, supposedly.
The Native American.
The Native American face, yeah.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Damn cultural appropriation even back then. But yeah, so that's the Native American patch. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But yeah, see if you can see something there. That's just, I came across that years ago, and it had something to do with, the joint operation for Marines and Army during World War One. And there was I think after the war they adopted that likeness to him. Or maybe it's just a rumor. I was never in the second ID.
Nicknamed Indian Division due to the design, blah, 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 Beach, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, I'd have to look off the air and spend a little more time, but yeah. You said you had an artifact or two you wanted to talk about, Jeff. Is that the case?
Oh, yeah. If we wanted to do a little show and tell real quick, yeah. I'm going to go to my Foot Locker here. And it just prompted, so just cruising eBay the other day. I try to stay away from it, but every now and then I pull up eBay, which my eBay is U.S. Army Air Corps World War II search, the search title, right? And golly, have you guys seen the prices on original A2 jackets?
No,
I'm afraid to know.
But I can imagine.
Because I want an A2, and I just don't think it's ever going to happen.
Well, I mean, these are named and painted and all that great stuff. Mine is, I know who it belongs to. It was given to me by the guy that wore it World War II. It's not painted or anything. Doesn't have the stitched, leather name tape or anything on there. But it's original A2. And this guy flew B-17s in World War II. You can still see the lieutenant's bars on the epaulets. So I thought I would pull this out.
I got 2 Foot Lockers, and neither one of them look as nice as yours. They're literally being used for storage.
Well, that's my display Foot Locker. That's my living history. Everything in there is, everything from my baseball mitt to prophylactic kits and everything.
That's sheepskin,
That's my 8th Air Force Bombardier Foot Locker display. But yeah, here it is. It's a little rough around the top of the zipper.
Could you put
Is that
mink
the one
oil?
you've worn before?
No. Well,
That's
maybe.
another one. Okay.
Could you put
Maybe.
mink
I
oil
mean,
on it, or is it so old that might do more harm than good?
It's pretty well. That shoulder you can see. He had it on a hanger,
Oh yeah.
hanging in his attic, for a couple centuries. Um, but like I said, you can still see the lieutenant
Yeah.
on the uplet there. Yeah,
How
I may
cool
have.
would it, when he gave it to you, was there like, did you reach in the pocket to see if there was a scrap of paper from a briefing or something?
Oh yeah. So
How cool
this.
would that have been?
Oh,
God.
I know, man. And yeah. Oh
He
yeah.
would have given his left
So
nut just to have a Wrigley Spearmint gum wrapper in there.
Yeah. I'd
anything.
frame that, man.
Anything. I know. And it's just it's so stinking cool. It fits me really well. It fits me better than my East. So I have an Eastman, A2, and I know Henry knows about that one. That's the one I wear all the time, but it's a
Yeah. So
44. And
That's big on you.
it's a size 44. It's got a little bit
Right.
extra at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
And I watching 12 o'clock high all the time. I want an A2 that fits me like Paul Burke's does, right? Like
Well, they were close fitting jackets. I mean,
Well, a lot
They
of stuff
were.
was, and like all my jackets, I got to get 44s because of how tall I am. I'm 6'5", but they just drape off me, and I look like I've already lost weight from battle. But it's like I guess I could probably get them brought in a little bit, but because of how tall I am, my uniforms just drape off of me because I got to get them long because of my arm length.
if I ever get an A2, I figured I'd get it from Eastman, Jeff. So that your
Yeah.
perspective on that would be, I mean, I doubt I will, because especially after Masters, man, they're going to be just,
Oh, I know. So, but the Paul Burke, and if listeners don't know who I'm talking about with Paul Burke, so I'm a big 12 o'clock high fan. I love that series. It only ran for 3 seasons. I've talked about it on here before, but go back and look. You can find these episodes on YouTube for free. Paul Burke's got a great looking A2. He's the main star of the series, but yeah, I mean, it fits him like the Fonz, right?
Yeah.
Like Fonzie's leather jacket, but. Talking to Air Corps reenactors and some other living history guys, they're like, hey, go, really kind of study some of these pictures. Yeah, I mean, some of the jackets, they seemed like they were a little too small on these guys, and others, they seemed a little bit too big. So, no, they were not custom tailored at all, of course, to you.
mhm.
But it makes more sense to have a little bit more because, you're wearing it over top of so many other things. You do
Mhm.
not want a tight jacket.
Right.
You do not want to be restricted. It looks good when you're cruising in your Jeep, going out to Piccadilly for the evening or the weekend or whatever. But up in that aircraft, you need that extra room for everything else. So it makes sense. So I've worn mine. I don't have the flight coveralls yet, but so went ahead and the chocolate shirt and the wool pants, the Mae West over top the flight jacket, stuff in my pockets, like. It fills up pretty quick. And
Yeah.
I'm not wearing any like cold weather gear either. I don't have the Blue Bunny on underneath or anything like that. So, honestly, from a utilitarian perspective, the one I have is probably the size it would need to be because it's not a fashion statement.
Jeff, I've read, and well, I'm talking to both of you. I've read, as I'm sure you have too, that from contract to contract, there was variation in how they draped, and some were, just
Quality of
snugger
leather.
fit, some were boxier.
Right.
Well, just like
Right.
the Army HBT camo, it's super big. And when you go to at the front, they say, hey, this thing is super big because it's supposed to be a add-on to put over your M43 or M42. I mean, these things are baggy because they were a shell. They weren't a jacket. They were a camouflage shell to put over your other gear. And so that's why they're baggy. And I never realized this until I saw a screenshot from Fury. I can't remember his name, the Hispanic guy who drove the tank in Fury. What the character?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He actually had an HBT camo shirt underneath his M42, and you don't really notice it in the movie. But if you look at screenshots or you watch they do making of Fury interviews, and he has the frog skin HBT underneath his P42 jacket throughout the whole movie. You just don't really realize it because of the filters they put on the cameras. Which I thought was a cool little tidbit. Did I ever show you my original pith helmet?
Yeah.
Hold on, I'll pull that up real quick since we don't want to show and tell. obviously Holly liners are super expensive, and like if you see them cracked and trashed, they're just super expensive. So I have my plastic version, but I know what they should look like and feel like because my pith helmet, which I posted pictures on Instagram and Facebook this week, and I've had this for a while, it actually has the Holly stamp in it. So this is the same material that the Holly liners would have been made out of, but this is the Holly company pith helmet. And same reason I was talking about the paper liners disintegrated in humidity is the same reason I won't wear this at an event. As cool as it would look to be in my P40, P42s with this on, but because this is an actual cardboard Holly liner pith helmet, it turns green because of the background. But you can see the stamp in there. It says Holly Company. That's the same exact material that the liners are made of. And I was talking to somebody before, and they said they basically went to a thrift store and they found a brown T-shirt that same color, and that's what they coated their plastic Holly liner with. But yeah, this is my Holly Company pith helmet. And it's going to turn green because of the green screen, but that stamp in there actually says Holly Company. It has a little palm tree on it. Has a pith helmet, a palm tree, and like the sun shining down. No, it has a sun and clouds raining down on it. And it says the Holly product, St. Chapel, Illinois, or St. Charles, Illinois. And so this was, nice. I got this off eBay a few years back. Most of them have a khaki chin strap. You don't see a lot of them with the leather one on there.
So I'm just trying to go back through and see if I could kind of justify what I was saying earlier about the 2nd Infantry Division. I'm coming across a few different things, but it looks like the 2nd Infantry Division, as known as the Warrior Division, was activated October of 1917 in Bourmont, France during World War I, making it the first U.S. Army division founded on foreign soil. It's also the only division in U.S. military history to be commanded by not one but 2 Marine Corps generals, including Marine Major General John A. Lejeune, affectionately known as the Old Indian.
There you go.
It is they call it the Indian Head Division. I think in 1933 is when they redesigned and kind of decided on this is the shape, these are the colors and the design, and Lejeune had played a part in the design of the patch that we know it as today, now 90 years later. So even though the division was founded in 1917, the patch that we know today wasn't officially adopted till 33, and he played some part in affectionately known as the Old Indian. So that's what I mean. It doesn't necessarily look like him, but it represented Major General Lejeune that commanded them.
It's very cool.
So I thought that I knew there was something about it. So I don't know if that's what Dennis was referring to or not. I mean, the Army division that the Marine Corps respected, I would say, gosh, every division. I mean, we always have gotten along since 1775. I don't know what the big deal is.
I'm looking at some...
Right, Henry?
Well, I mean, my article in World War II magazine touched on that.
Yeah.
The
Army gets a bad rap in the Pacific, but my goodness, I mean, fighting men were fighting men, and the Marine Corps had to do it with less. They accomplish more with less sometimes. And that's where that pride comes from. And
that's a big John McManus thing, which kind of inspired me to write that article for World War II. And the point of it is, there was inter-service rivalry, of course, but when the push came to shove, the 2 services fought together and did pretty well, all things considered.
Absolutely.
You were talking earlier about how, depending on the supplier, the product, that some of the jackets had a different cut when it came to the A2 jackets. I'm just looking at a screenshot, and here's an original photo of, there's 5 guys, but one of them's got an M42 on, but there's 4 pilots, and 2 of them's A2's jackets are a darker brown, and the other 2 kind of have more of like a A2 or the service boot reddish tint to it. So just, back then, once again, depends on the leather supplier and this and that. Things weren't exactly the same colors. They didn't match. And that's and being nowadays the way we are, that's kind of like one of the things you just have to get over with. I remember when I got my Eisenhower jacket, I was so happy to finally find a reproduction Eisenhower jacket that fits me. And it's more authentic this way, but when you first put it on, you're like, well, that sucks, but the color of the wool is not the exact same shade as my wool trousers, but that's how it would have been because you had so many different supplies of wool coming to so many different vendors and all this stuff. your HBT shirt wasn't the exact same tone as the trousers, or your wool shirt wasn't the exact same tone, and that's just the way it was. And it's actually more authentic. But we're so caught up on modern day stuff that, why isn't the exact same dye color? Nope, because that's not how it was.
Right. Well, Air Corps jackets were horsehide for the most part, and the Navy and Marine jackets were goat skin.
Yeah,
makes sense.
The M422.
All the horses that got eaten. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So that kind of led me to put this book behind me here, Gear Up. This is John McGuire's flight clothing and equipment, for the Army Air Forces during World War II. And I mean, this is there's some wonderful color pictures in this book. But yeah, there's a whole chapter, of course, on the A2s and the differences in the ones that served in the CBI as the ones, in England. This is it's such a well done book. I actually met a guy. He's an Army Air Corps reenactor. Met him in Dallas a few months back. That he owns one of the painted A2s that are featured in one of John McGuire's books. And for folks who don't know, John McGuire was a World War II pilot. This is a picture of him here when you first open it up. So this guy not only kind of knows his stuff, but he was there. And so, yeah, these books they're so well done. I mean, there's a lot of times where you'll see actual photographs, and then you'll see a good color photograph of a mannequin, so you really see what he's talking about. So
I own that book, man. It's a good one. I love it.
I love this one. Between this one and Bianchi, I think it was Bianchi that did. Yeah, I think it wasn't Bianchi, but I have another one on U.S. Army Air Force. Gear and clothing. I mean, they're kind of my two. I'm a big 8th Air Force, impression. So we're putting Henry to sleep.
I can never.
No, you're not. I'm just tired as hell, but you're not putting me to sleep.
I can never understand why the 782 gear book for the Marine Corps is so damn expensive. It just blows my mind how the price tag on that.
Was that Harlan Glenn's book, Don? Or did somebody else write that?
That's Glenn.
Yeah, Harlan Glenn. And it's not like these are limited. They're printing new ones all the time. Like, I'm on eBay right now. It's like the going rate for that 782 book is between $80 and $160. It's like, well, here's one for
it's a big book.
Here's one for a cool $66 free shipping. But it's like, damn, how great are those photos? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I guess for me, it'd be like one thing if that was a limited series book and there was like 200 of them, but the fact that these are all saying brand new, which means they're still under press, it's like that's a chunky, that's a big price tag to pay for that book. But I guess it's worth it if you want to make sure you got it all down. But
yeah, it's worth it, man. I mean, that's where, I mean, even if you just want to put together, a jungle first aid kit, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at these shots here.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, I'm not a reenactor, but I just have a passion for this equipment and these uniforms, and I love these books.
Yeah,
it tells you what all these different stamps mean. That you
That's
saw
cool,
on.
Yeah.
What division they came out of, just based on those stamping.
What blows my mind is when you actually put that 782 pack together completely, how the suspenders wrap around the top and the bottom.
All the different leggings, the coloration, the variation of the leggings. Yeah.
Fun fact: easiest way to know the difference between Marine. Oh, here you go. Perfect example. Leggings are leggings, right? Nope. Marine Corps had 6 hooks. The Army had 8. I mean, just stuff like that. You can tell.
I feel like it was more than 8.
I believe it was 6 and 8, or maybe 8 and 12. Yeah, I know Marine Corps had less.
It's
maybe
big
8 and
difference.
12.
Yeah.
Substantial size. Hey,
Yeah.
Gabe's checking in. Gabe says, "How are you guys doing?" We're doing well, Gabe. Happy to hear from you.
Yeah,
But,
I can't wait to talk smack to him at the next Army-Navy game.
I guess we can do what you're reading. I think we're all been reading the same book for the last 3 weeks, so we're no reason to really. I mean, I'm still reading. I'm staying with the boys, and Jeff is still slogging through with the old breed. And Henry, are you still in the same book, or you
yeah,
got a new one?
Yeah, I am. I'm still reading Battle of the Bismarck Sea.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm slogging through. I mean, that sounds like a negative connotation there.
Thank you, Jeff. I wasn't going to say it because he's the host.
I would slog through like A Tale of Two Cities.
No, well,
right?
slog
that would
because,
be a book I would slog through.
all the mud and on Okinawa and all that, it's. But
yeah,
anyhow.
I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel it. I can smell it, and I can appreciate it. I mean, it's like reading this book now, guys. I mean, I know Don said he's read it a bunch of times, and I've said this before. I read it once before WTSP came into my life. I'm reading it again, and let me tell you, it's like watching an old like Popeye cartoon the first time to like a 4D experience now.
Yes,
like,
and that's what I was going to say.
Every word is
your father paints a visual picture with his words, and the perfect example is how he explains, and they show him falling into that particular foxhole in the series, but they don't show the whole importance of that one Marine. But in the book, he's talking about how that Marine in that foxhole becomes like a timepiece. They know how long they've been out there by the level of decay in his body. They saw on the day he got shot, and by the time they pulled out of there, the skin was, the decay. They had been out there so long that one particular body that he ended up falling on when he slid down the hill.
Yeah,
it's
page 269. I know it like the back of my hand.
And like you can visually see it in your head as you're reading it. It paints a picture.
Yeah,
it was a Japanese soldier you're talking about. The body.
No, it was a dead Marine.
It was a Marine
because it was.
You're talking about when he was digging a foxhole. I'm talking about when he slid down the hill and into the foxhole, and then he had all the maggots on him, and he's picking them off.
Oh,
you're talking about when he's digging a foxhole. Like, no, there's a Jap here. No, I need to. No, I told you to dig here. Yeah, that's what I think Jeff's talking.
No,
about.
I'm still. I haven't gotten Okinawa yet. I'm on Peleliu, and that he uses that line where it was like this biological time clock of watching this rotting Japanese body that was exposed. That's in Peleliu.
That's when they're starting to get up around Hill 140.
Right. Yeah. The biological time clock every time they went by it. What
Don's talking about outside of Half Moon Hill.
Well, I got confused. You're both right. Jeff was right about the biological time clock, and then when he slid down the hill, it was the Marine body that he landed in. His hand went through.
Right. Whew. Yeah, it's a lot. No reason to read that book quick, but there's every reason in the world to read that book.
Twice. Read it. Definitely twice. No, so you got to read it right after the other. Let it linger. That book lingers in your mind regardless. I mean, it's just so well written and so detailed that that's the type of book you're thinking about it for like a month and a half after you read the last page. It's just such a fantastic book. But I think that's just going to about wrap it up. Henry, do you got anything coming down the pike?
Yes, I was on the Commander's Voice with Ben Powers last week. He's going to have George Loves Jr. and me on at some point really soon. He wanted to talk to me first because he's talked to George many times. So that's coming up, and also I'll just update you guys very quickly. I got an email from one of the Library of Congress people about just continuing that conversation. So, no major developments on that. Just the conversation will continue on that. So, that's all I'm going to.
No worries. That's just I'm just watching I looked down at the YouTube feed and like what's going on there is different because there's a delay. I'm like, huh? But anyhow, I was distracted. Jeff, you got some things coming down the pike possibly too, right?
Yeah. Also got an email today from a gal who works with the Commemorative Air Force at the headquarters up there in Dallas. She was out at our Bluebonnet Air Show, last weekend, about a week ago. And she's with their media team and, gave her a business card and our squadron commander there, he, introduced her and I, and he said, oh yeah, Jeff's our museum director and living history and all that stuff. And he also has World War II podcasts and just a kind of a quick conversation about some of the things that I do. So gave her my business card, and she emailed me today and said that the CAF has a kind of like us, a weekly show. They call it Warbird Tube, CAF Warbird Tube. And I think it streams live every Wednesday night, I believe. So I'm booked to go on to talk the museum, WTSP, movies, living history, all just everything I do here. And I think I'm booked on the 19th of April.
Fantastic.
So that's a Wednesday coming up. Yeah. So really excited about that. CF is an international organization that is dedicated to keeping aircraft from World War II flying and airworthy and continuing to do air shows. And it's just living history at the highest level. And what they do is amazing. To have over, I think, 140 aircraft within the CAF and squadrons all over. Really excited about that for sure.
And if you want to support the show and you're a business owner, but your business is a product that's available worldwide, obviously it's kind of hard to sell a worldwide podcast to a regional audience when it comes to advertising. But if you want to help support the show and you want to, possibly get some advertising, maybe you sell some kick-ass coffee or something, or whatever, you online services or whatever, maybe you make World War II uniforms for reenactors. If you want to help support the show, email us at mailcall@WTSP.com. I think you'll be surprised at how welcoming our advertising packages are, because we're getting to that point where we would like to bring on some advertisers. And so if you want to be one of the first and you want to support the show that way, and we can help you by supporting your product and having our listeners support your product, obviously, once again, it makes more sense if your product was something nationwide or worldwide, because obviously if you're an electrician in Chicago, we'd love to have you, but that's going to greatly reduce your potential return on investment relying on, people who live in Chicago. So if you have a product or a service that can be obtained by people throughout the country or possibly the world, and you want to support the show and buy some advertisement, please email us at mailcall@WTSPWWII.com. And that's WTSPWWII.com. And I will be more than happy to get with you, and we'll work something out. And as we said before, Patreon, YouTube, T-shirts, stickers, it's the way to go. And right now, there is a plethora of conversation going on in the YouTube channel. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, JT. Hopefully this is something that we can continue each week. And if you guys are listening to the audio version of this, just 9:30 Eastern time every Monday, if you want to ask us a question, here's your opportunity to ask Jeff a question, Henry a question, myself a question, and we'll answer it in real time. And even if you can't join in live, send us questions to our email. We'll read them, and then you can listen to the answer when you regularly listen to our show, however you prefer to do it. And we don't say this much, but if you listen to us, especially on iTunes, Spotify really doesn't have a way for written comments or suggestions or reviews, and I don't think Google does either, but I know iTunes does. If you listen to us on iTunes, please, give us a rating, write a comment on there. It goes, more comments, more ratings. iTunes will suggest us to people when they're listening to other history-based podcasts. They'll say, hey, people like this, also like this. And so that goes a long way too. So you want to support the show that way, and you listen to us through Apple Podcasts, just, highlight all those stars and give us a quick line or two about how great we are. And you can support the show that way. But on behalf of myself, Henry, and Jeff, we want to thank each and every one of you. And we're loving to see the show growing as it is. It's taken a while, but we're getting there, and we love it. We love each and every one of you guys. But till next week, on behalf of myself, Henry, and Jeff, thank you guys, and we'll see you on Monday.
This has been a Digital 410 production.